Chelsea table record bid for Enzo Fernandez ahead of deadline day, and Conor Gallagher attracts Premier League interest. Hello there guys, what is going on? Daniel Childs back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. I hope you're doing well, hope you're keeping safe, hope you had a decent weekend. We are back into a week where Chelsea are going to be back in action in the Premier League against Fulham on Friday night. Before we get to that game on Friday, it's going to be a massive 24 hours, I think, for Chelsea as we reach transfer deadline day in what has been an incredible, amazing and busy January window for Chelsea Football Club, where Enzo Fernandez could indeed be a Chelsea player before we reach the end of this window. That is going to dominate today's show as expected, with some other stuff in there as well. If you are enjoying the content, if you want to see more Chelsea content, make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of the uploads on the channel. Also give a video a like if you're excited about the prospect of Enzo Fernandez becoming a Chelsea player. And if you're listening on the podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. Son of Chelsea is a part of the 90 Min podcast network. This time last week we were speaking about Enzo Fernandez, reports coming out, Chelsea back in for the player, but then kind of died down as the week progressed. But then Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, really, this is when I started to see those reports. We started getting chatted that Chelsea are really back in for Enzo Fernandez, and they're going to try and make the deal happen before transfer deadline day. Before that deadline is passed, can Enzo Fernandez come to Chelsea? Can we make it official? And very much reports of Chelsea, a bit like with the McCallum Mudryk deal, sending a party over to Portugal to make it happen. This was a report by Matt Law earlier today. And as I say, I'm sure when you're listening to this or watching this, things may have changed quite radically. But Chelsea, table record 105 million offer for Enzo Fernandez, Matt Law reports. Telegraph Sport understands that Chelsea have now made an offer of just over £105 million to Benfica for Fernandez, with co-controlling owner Behdad Ighbali and director of global talent and transfers Paul Winstanley ready to clinch a deal. Chelsea's bid meets the figure in Fernandez's buyout clause, but the club have so far offered to stagger it across one larger payment and 5 later payments. That has left some room for negotiations, but Chelsea are optimistic that the size of the bid, together with the player's desire to move to Stamford Bridge, will eventually convince Benfica president Rui Costa to sell. This is after just 29 Benfica appearances and 11 goal involvements, which I'm sure has made people raise their eyebrows around Enzo Fernandez. That's typical. I just want to read out this stat, though, from Squawker around Enzo Fernandez this season. He has played more passes ending in the opposition half, 1,002, than any other player in Europe's top 7 leagues this season. This is the deal. This is the one that you've just got to sit there and go, could this be game changer for Chelsea? And it's hard for me to kind of get, I don't want to get too excited, but you really do, particularly from someone like a lot of you who have waited so long for Chelsea to sign a midfielder, who sat through those depressing days when we were told that Aurelien Tchouameni was not ready to play for Chelsea, and instead we signed Saul Niguez on loan, and a year later Aurelien Tchouameni is going to Real Madrid as we're still in sanctions and we can't rival that bid. And just seeing what's happened in Chelsea's midfield and seeing the number of signings we've made in other areas, just constantly window after window, not making significant investment in an area that to me is just so crucial for Chelsea as a club, just in terms of modern football, but particularly around the structure of your game. If you don't have a solid midfield, in my opinion, I think you get found out more often than not. And to think that Chelsea might be going in there, might make this still happen in the final few hours of the window is very exciting. And Enzo Fernandez, as a player, I think has already proved that at the biggest stage at the World Cup, he can impress. And from a passing and kind of, as we talk about from a more progressive side, could really be a game changer. And you start to kind of think in your head, and it sounds like fantasy football, right? And all these players have got a click, but you start cobbling these players who have come in January, or the ones we already have, the ones returning from injury together, and you get a lot more excited about a conclusion, the remaining months to this season, when I think a few weeks ago, a lot of people just wanted the season to end and were just like, what pleasure and joy are Chelsea fans going to get out of this season? But seeing Enzo Fernandez become a Chelsea player might offer that. It really will. David Ornstein has been reporting this. Adam Newsom was reporting this earlier today. There's been several reports around this, and it's all about the final stage now. Can Chelsea reach that agreement? We had Liam Toomey on the show last week, and he, at the time, we recorded it on Thursday, still was, and I think I could still agree with him that, Chelsea paying the release clause instantly right now, which has always been kind of the stumbling block to this deal from the very start of this month. He still feels that's unrealistic. And as being reported today, that still seems to be the case. Chelsea are going to offer a lot, going to offer what Benfica want in terms of a fee, but over a period of time. And whether that is enough to convince Benfica's president, Rui Costa, to sell will be definitive in this deal. But the fact it hasn't died and the fact that Chelsea have gone back in, I was listening to Straight Out of Cobham, the Athletic podcast earlier, and I think Simon Johnson brought up a good point. Chelsea have clearly had a very good indication, particularly from the player, to go back in, because Enzo, despite kissing the Benfica badge earlier this month, wants this move. And I'm sure like a lot of you are very excited about what this could mean for Chelsea's midfield moving forward. Such a key area of our squad that just hasn't been invested in, hasn't been rebuilt for so long. And maybe, just maybe, on the eve of transfer deadline day, in the most dramatic way possible, Enzo Fernandez might become a Chelsea player, and Chelsea may finally, after years of waiting, seriously invest in central midfield. So that in itself is very exciting. The other big story to speak about today is around another midfielder, a midfielder Chelsea do currently have, and that is Conor Gallagher. This report from Nazar Kinsella, I saw Fabrizio Romano tweeting this as well. Chelsea apparently are ready to accept a 45 million Conor Gallagher bid from Everton amid Enzo Fernandez transfer push. Gallagher could still yet leave Chelsea before Tuesday night's transfer deadline after Everton tabled a bid for his services. The England midfielder had looked set to remain at Stamford Bridge and fight for his place under Graham Potter, but an exit is now thought possible. Kinsella goes on to mention that a departure for Gallagher is more likely at this stage if Chelsea can pull off that late blockbuster move for the World Cup winner Enzo Fernandez. But we have heard two reports since this from Adam Newson and Liam Toomey that apparently a mid-season switch to Everton is not something Gallagher is open to. There are other interested parties. West Ham and Newcastle have been touted in recent weeks, so we have to see if either of those clubs come in. I mean, John Joe Shelvey has just left Newcastle. Even though they have signed Anthony Gordon, they may be looking for a replacement, and that could be Conor Gallagher. And of course, Newcastle, you look at where they are at the moment, they could be offering Champions League football in the summer. They're doing so well under Eddie Howe and could be making the League Cup final. So I think that obviously that's a more exciting proposition. I think a lot of clubs are more an exciting proposition than Everton are at the moment. But to see if that falls through or see that goes through, it is going to be interesting. I did think this tweet from Jake Cohen was quite, revealing in terms of from the business side for Chelsea, spending all of this money. Can Chelsea spend all this money? And around amortization and the fact that if Chelsea were to get 40 million for Conor Gallagher before deadline day, I mean, that is straight profit into Chelsea's pockets, which is very appealing at this moment, particularly with the fear that Chelsea don't get Champions League football. There was a report today around David Ornstein, Chelsea sponsorship deal. I'd be upset to see Conor Gallagher leave. I really would, given his improvement and development out on loan and then bringing him back. It's been a difficult year for him, but it's been a difficult season for every Chelsea player, probably other than Thiago Silva. We were speaking about Thiago last week. Gallagher, I still think offers something very exciting to me as a midfielder. And even if you are bringing in Enzo Fernandez, I think the idea that completely blocks and eliminates the chance of Gallagher playing more football, I think is silly to me. And I think that for Gallagher, with his affection to Chelsea and with it being this late in the window, to convince the player to make that switch other than maybe Newcastle, I think is unlikely. You can understand from a business sense if a club is offering 40 to 45 million for Conor Gallagher right now, that is an appealing deal, particularly if you're just about to spend a record fee on someone coming in. And we've already said all the other money that's been invested on players this window. But for Gallagher's own development, I'd be excited to see what he could do with some of these new players around him and to see how he could develop as a young player and get better and more experience, and how he would fit into what I think Graham Potter's trying to do at Chelsea in the upcoming weeks and months. Let me know your opinions on Conor Gallagher's future in the comments below. The final thing just to add here is a post, I think, from Mykhailo Mudryk on Instagram, and it's of Rhys James training and getting ready, hopefully, for the weekend's game against Fulham. It's exciting to see Mykhailo Mudryk at Stamford Bridge, and I think it's equally and probably more exciting for a lot of us to see Rhys James back in action. Hopefully he can remain fit, because that is a game changer, and you think that those two, with Rhys James crossing and his delivery on the right side, could be transformative for Chelsea. So listen, I mean, I may be back this evening if something really big breaks around Enzo Fernandez, and it's that time of year, and particularly with the way the reporting has been going, it's been very consistent today. I'm just watching it kind of tick over and it go from meetings to Chelsea tabling that offer. I think Benfica do play tomorrow. So there was a report and kind of some suggestion from, I think it was Ben Jacobs, that Benfica want to get this sorted soon. And I think it's the same for Chelsea, right? This is a massive deal. And probably what we don't want is a situation like we've had in recent years, and you see on transfer deadline day where there's a constant rush and we don't know if the papers are going to be filed at the right time. Don't want that stress. If it can be resolved by this time tomorrow, and we know either way, is Enzo Fernandez going to become a Chelsea player or is he not? I think that's good for both parties, and hopefully, positively, he will be a Chelsea player. But those are my thoughts today. Let me know yours in the comments below. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.